Now I will talk about the definition and characteristics of financial equity. The definition of financial equity is the difference between the value of an individual's or entity's assets and liabilities. It is also referred to as net worth. Financial equity is more commonly called equity, but higher education uses the term financial equity to distinguish it from the use of equity as it relates to the finance. The characteristics of financial equity are equity in a business enterprise stems from ownership rights. Next, equity represents the source of distribution by an enterprise to its owners, whether in the form of cash dividends or other distribution of assets. Next, equity is residual interest in the asset of an enterprise after deduction liabilities. After that, equity is not liability of the enterprise. And the last one, equity is not a contractual obligation of the enterprise. Next, the definition and characteristic of financial liabilities. The definition of financial liabilities are any future sacrifice of economic benefits that an entity must make as a result of its past transaction or any other activity in the past. The future sacrifice to be made by the entity can be in the form of any money or service owed to the other party. The characteristics of financial liabilities are they happen as a result of a previous transaction or occurrence. It establishes a present liability for further cash or service payment, and liabilities are unavoidable burden.
Distinguishing liabilities from equity, ISB 2018, which classify liabilities or equity based on the two features. First, a timing feature. The timing feature refers to an obligation to transfer economic resources, which is cash or another financial asset, at a specific time other than liquidation. Second, an amount feature. The amount feature refers to an obligation to transfer economic resources at an amount independent of the entity firm available economic resources. The problem arises related to the issue discussed in the article is first, the impact of environmental performance on capital structure and firm performance. Environmental performance could also play a significant role in determining the capital structure decision through business risk and cost of debt. A firm exposure to reputational, regulatory, and litigation risks, as well as unpredictable environmental liabilities, increase business risk and decrease the firm's ability to meet that obligation. Previous literature has concentrated on the impact of environmental performance on the absolute level of the cost of debt and cost of equity. This article analyzed the effect on debt ratio, which represents the firm choice between equity and debt financial, and considers the relative importance of impact of environmental performance on debt costs and equity costs. Chang et al. 2021 find that the environmental responsible can enhance firm debt capacity and improve the availability of bank credit. Secondly, law of environmental liability and environmental harm. Environmental liability is an instrument of environmental protection for the prevention of compensation for environmental harm. Firms are liable to the quantity of chemical released into the environment. Environmental liability can be further divided into 6 categories, which is obligation to achieve the maintain compliance with environmental regulation and law. Secondly, obligation imposed by pollution remediation or cleanup law. Thirdly, obligation to pay civil and criminal fines and penalties for non-compliance. Fourth, obligation to compensate private parties for injury to human health, property, and economic activity. Fifth, obligation to pay punitive damages for misconduct. And last but not least, obligation to compensate government for damages to natural resources. Failure to manage the effect of the risk on the environmental can attract lawsuit and legal action by government agency against the business. Problem number 3 is effect of environmental liabilities on financial leverage. High financial leverage or financing difficulty will weaken supplier ability to honor implicit contract. Firms with higher environmental liabilities tend to face more pressure on environmental performance and experience more uncertainties about their future financial performance when they have a poor relationship with their local community, suggesting that firms with higher environmental liabilities should use less financial leverage and borrow less from banks, and for community relations, reduce their financial debt. Problem number 4 is effect on environmental liabilities on the use of bank debt. Banks are more environmentally sensitive than other lenders because they are more identifiable and more likely to be held responsible for environmental damage caused by a borrower. Firms with high environmental liabilities rely less on bank debt and tend to have a lower fraction of bank debt. Larger and profitable firms with high leverage, and firms with credit rating tend to have a lower proportion of bank financing in that structure.
I will explain about approaches might be used by the standard setter for this issue. Firstly, firms' debt policy should be less conservative in their capital structure decisions. It's necessary for properly treating, recycling, recovering, and disposing pollutants prior to direct release into the environment. In addition, capital expenditure are often made to purchase pollution, control equipment, and achieve pollution prevention through technology innovations, raw material substitution, or process rectification. Secondly, environmental liabilities should be more properly recognized when firms are more visible. Firms with greater visibility are more subject to public and have higher reputation and litigation risks. Customers may be reluctant to conduct business with suppliers with higher financial leverage or financial difficulties, which weakens suppliers' ability to honor implicit contracts. To the extent that environmental liabilities lower firms' capacity for financial debt and increase firms' business risk, the effect of environmental liabilities on leverage is expected to be stronger for firms that rely heavily on large customers. Firms with higher environmental liabilities tend to face more pressure on environmental performance and aspirate about their future financial performance when they have poor relationship with local community. Lastly, measure of environmental liabilities, capturing the financial expenses incurred by firms in complying with environmental laws and regulations. To estimate the financial relation between the amount of toxic production-related waste and the sum of the cost of goods sold and capital expenditure. External stakeholder group can exert pressure on companies via voting in elections, activism within environmental non-government organizations, and citizen lawsuits.
As a conclusion, in my opinion, on the first issue is that environment performance affects capital structure and firm performance in determining decision for business risk. The increased liability will cause the business risk to increase as well as lead to a decrease in the firm's ability to do so. While my opinion for the second issue highlighted, this is important, which can help firms in many ways. It encourages the economic players to take personal responsibility. An appropriately drafted environment liability law establishes financial incentive to stop harms from happening, opening the door to the polluter's payment to damage. For the third issue, I believe that financial leverage has a positive effect on firm value. High financial leverage or funding issues will make it more difficult for suppliers to uphold implicit contracts. When businesses have bad relationship with the local community, they are more likely to encounter pressure on their environmental performance and uncertainty about their future financial performance. According to me, on the four issues, largest, more successful companies with greater leverage, and companies with better credit ratings typically have a lower percentage of bank financing in their debt structures. My idea for the last issue is environmental liability of substitute is more of a large firm that has higher sales and firms that have a good community. Environmental liability will fluctuate drastically for the improvement of technology development and will occur every time a change in environmental regulation.